The lead homicide detective just got on scene, and although police have turned off their lights and sirens, you can look and see it's still a really active scene. And if you look down the road, you can see the evidence marker. And I want you to look at this building. Chris and I are over here in another section of downtown. You have pieces of brick that have fallen from here, landed in the street. As they're getting inside one unit and cutting through the wall and literally going from unit to unit. Right, 2 people have been shot and they were rushed to the hospital. You can see the police scene. Look at the debris. It's come up this high. I'm about 5'5", 5'6", so you can tell how high the water level got. Police have just cleared the scene in about the last 10 minutes. So although this section was blocked off, you can see traffic is running smoothly. And even though these child crisis detectives work a lot of child abuse cases, they say this one will haunt them. Cracks like this all along the walls and ceiling, and down on the ground you're going to see the bits of mortar. Luke Sherman and several members of his party are here right now setting up the room. The game's been going on for about 62 minutes and Tulsa is leading the way. Parents and organizers say they are excited about how this all came together, but they're hoping they will take some advice and make all play areas inclusive to children with special needs. Lee the horse locker and his trio of horses are calling Hominy home for tonight. But for the last 10 years, they've been traveling across the country.
Hello.
This 3-year-old Rapunzel is the only trick-or-treater walking through the Holiday Hills neighborhood this November.
Trick or treat. Well, honey, the treat is all mine.
Oh, what do you say?
The other kids got their candy fix almost a month ago, but Rapunzel, also known as Molly, couldn't make it back then.
That's a lollipop.
You did get lollipops.
4 days after her October 16th birthday, she was admitted into St. Francis Children's Hospital.
She was diagnosed with pneumonia 4 days after her actual 3rd birthday. So what turned into a 28-day stay in the hospital was originally only supposed to be about a week in the hospital, which turned into multiple surgeries, a few complications.
When she was released from the hospital, her only concern was Halloween.
A skeleton.
A simple Facebook post was all it took to make it happen.
The response was overwhelming. I mean, within about 15 minutes, there were 60 houses, 60 families that offered to let us come over and trick or treat.
Molly's mom, Stephanie Strait, says during her hospital stay, Molly was stuck in bed and had little energy. That spunk she'd been missing is back. Just enough to make sure News on 6 photographer Chris McNamara keeps it moving.
Come on.
He's coming too.
So from house to house she goes.
Happy Halloween, dear.
Picking up the treats she almost missed. Months after the city of Tulsa erupted in protest following the death of Terrence Crutcher, the former police officer at the center of it, Betty Shelby, is telling her side of the story.
I'm feeling that his intent is to do me harm, and I keep thinking, don't do this. Please don't do this.
I sat down with Mark Lewis of We the People Oklahoma, an activist group in Tulsa.
He didn't have the opportunity to at least meet the jury. She made her decision.
Throughout Shelby's 60-minute segment, Lewis often shook his head, even more so when Shelby said Crutcher caused his own death.
How can he cause his own death? She was the person who shot. She mentioned in reference to he was at a zombie state, but all of a sudden he become fast.
Contrary to Lewis's take on the interview, Amanda Miller with LIMSA, a police advocacy group, had a different take.
Some people it's not going to make a difference at all. Other people, hearing her perspective and hearing what went through her mind, it might actually help them.
She says it may not necessarily change the public's perspective, but it highlighted something more important.
When an officer feels their life is in danger, they are forced to make a split-second decision. They don't get that hindsight to look back.
I believe that there were so many opportunities for Betty Shelby not to use lethal force.
Both agree the trial outcome won't be decided by everyone, only the jury.
My organization has said from the beginning that we are going to 100% go with what the verdict decides.
17 holds a special significance for former Marine Anthony Marquez. As the chainsaw blade spins, it carves memories of each of his 17 comrades who lost their lives in battle.
On our deployment to Afghanistan, we had 17 guys that were killed and over 160 wounded.
Marquez served 2 tours as a K-9 officer. He's seen and endured a lot, but nothing prepared him for the pain of losing so many friends. Though he's no longer bearing arms, he bears the lasting pain along with his chainsaw.
I guess you could say it's somewhat a healing process. I mean, it takes a lot physically and emotionally.
He's transforming those emotions into battlefield crosses.
It's hard. I mean, it's challenging.
With just a few months of experience, he's been able to transform big logs into something beautiful. Each cross takes about 16 hours to finish.
I would guess this one probably weighs about 150 pounds.
So far, he's made 3. He's already given one to the family of a fallen Marine. He's sold another. And this one is being auctioned to raise money for a veteran who lost his home in a fire. But the main focus remains on the 17.
My goal is to give one to each family.
Faye, Alice, and Dink weigh a little under 2,000 pounds each. They are Suffolk Punch plow horses. Instead of tending to the fields, they tend to their owner, Lee the horse logger.
August 9th, 2006, my friends dumped me on the west side of the Rocky Mountains, and we started traveling. And the adventures began from there.
In 10 years, Lee and his horses, multiple have since retired, have traveled over 16,000 miles, all the while pulling a nearly 8,000-pound homemade wagon Lee calls home, taking breaks when they can.
This is what these guys are bred to do, and they like doing it.
Lee and his team are on the road all year looking for logging work where they can find it. Before becoming a countrywide traveler, Lee and his horses were loggers in Montana, but he lost his job in 2006 when 70% of the timber industry crashed.
I have to have a job. I like driving horses. Don't need a whole lot of money, just enough money to keep them fed.
He says it's not always easy, but if you love it, you'll make it work.
We've made it. We've done a lot of little jobs. We've done firewood jobs, do whatever.
Lee says the work he does is hard, but his biggest challenge is making sure he and his horses are fed. You can find out more information about Lee and his trio of horses over at newson6.com. Reporting in Hominy, Katiera Winfrey, News on 6.